What do you call that song?
I haven't really named it yet.
There's a Spinal Tap cue for you there.
Yeah. Well, it's called Lick now.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Acoustic Paradiso on Andertons TV. I have the lovely Marc from Taylor, all the way from America, to talk us through some of the changes that have happened in 2018 to the Taylor range. So thank you so much for coming over. Yeah. And I guess the big news for 2018 is to talk about how the clever people at Taylor have kind of redesigned the bracing system on most of the range. So can you kind of fill us in on a little bit on where we're at with that?
Absolutely. So we came out obviously with V-Class earlier this year, and it was fun hanging at NAMM this year. So we came in, it was really new to us, but what's been really cool is we've been out on the road doing road shows, traveling. And in so doing, we're presenting this live. And I think what's amazing is how people's minds are being blown, because when you come out with a new product and you're marketing it, there's a lot of skepticism, obviously. And so people would see clips on the internet and they'd kind of hear about it. And then they'd say, well, it sounds cool, but I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. And then when you go out and perform live in front of audiences and they can really hear it for themselves in an acoustic setting, it's been mind-blowing. So this week we've been in England, obviously doing 4 shows this week and having a lot of fun. So the point is it's called V-Class bracing. What it is a whole different way that we're bracing the instruments for those that don't know. And effectively, what we have a bracing that comes from the bottom of the guitar up, now in a V, rather than your traditional X brace. Yeah. And the benefits to that for us is that the guitar's rocking a little more seamlessly, and it's giving us more orderly the way the notes are coming off the guitar, which is improving the intonation of the instrument. But the other cool thing is that we can now, in R&D, we can control volume and sustain independently of each other, which is really the big thing. Because it's not, we told people about volume and sustain with V-Class. So people immediately see, they're saying they have infinite volume and infinite sustain. And that wasn't the case. The challenge with X brace is it's always a zero-sum game of really from volume to sustain. Say you have 50 points of volume and 50 points of sustain. If I want to add volume, 10 points there, it's going to come
take away
cost.
Sustain, right?
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, I think the bracing element of a guitar is fascinating. You know, I think the bracing you guys will probably be most familiar with, and I would love to take this off the wall, but I've realized it's tied to it. But maybe you can either see this or a picture on the screen will come up. But this is the 150-year-old traditional X bracing that you would put on an acoustic guitar. You talk about people forward shifting it, back shifting it, scalloping the bracing, all kinds of, but fundamentally staying with that X bracing. You may have seen some videos that we did earlier in the year of some Epiphone acoustics that had a lateral bracing, a much stiffer bracing to the X bracing, and again, completely changes the tone of the guitar, much more that sort of gypsy jazz, Django Reinhardt kind of vibe. But you realize that, I mean, bracing is everything to the way, that balance between the rigidity that you need in a top to ensure the guitar just doesn't implode or explode, but also allowing the top to vibrate. So there's a picture on the screen now of V bracing that Marc was just talking about, and you can see it's a pretty radical shift from X bracing. So is that? Do you know much about the backstory about how maybe Andy Powers was kind of, have there been, has this been in the offing for years and like multiple different variants of the bracing? Or?
It's the Thomas Edison, Benjamin Franklin moment you're seeking. Got it. Effectively, let's give a little bit backstory really quick, because I think it's kind of important for people to understand. And that is, when it comes to X bracing, where we think about, how does the guitar get volume, it's really the flexibility of the top of the guitar that creates the volume. And we always like to tell people, it's effectively like a banjo, right? It's got a drum head, you hit it, it's really loud for just a second, and there's no sustain there. The opposite, when you tightly brace the top of a guitar, you get a lot of sustain out of it because it's tightly braced. And we think about, here in England, the Spinal Tap moment, right? You got a Les Paul, what? It's going for days, but you can't hear it unless you plug it into an amp and crank it up.
Yeah.
So that's been the challenge, is getting those individually. Well, with V-Class, Andy Powers, he often goes to the beach. He's a surfer guy in California, and he'll go to the beach. And he was telling me that he likes to watch the waves, because when he watches waves in the ocean, he can see it and apply it to sound waves. And he gets he's just savant-like in a lot of ways, super cool guy. And one day he's at the beach and he's watching waves come in. He sees one hit a seawall or hit a jetty or whatever it was, and the wave just breaks into two equal parts and keeps going uniform. One hits the beach, one goes into the harbor or whatever. That's my twist on it. So similarly, the V starting down here, it's kind of like that, where the waves of the sound can kind of go across the guitar, and what ends up happening is just very uniform, and it just makes the top move more orderly than a traditional X brace. And you mentioned X brace being 180 years old or whatever it is. The challenge there is that I think you've got thousands of builders in that last 180 years, and great builders. I mean, X-Brace are great guitars. I own 25 X-Brace guitars, but everybody's tweaked them. Like you say, all the different things they've done, it's been tweaked within an inch of its life.
It's definitely, it's that cross point on the X, and kind of how close you move it to the bridge versus how far away you move it to the bridge seems to really, that does affect the tonality of an X-Brace system. And I think that the general wisdom was that the further you moved it away, the more sort of volume you got out the guitar. But it's quite interesting. Look, as I said, looking at the V bracing on the picture, it's such a radical departure. It almost looks more like some of those lateral bracings that you got in the early Epiphone sort of guitars, but it doesn't sound anything like those. I mean, it sounds like it just sounds like a kind of enhanced version of an X-Brace, if enhanced is the right word, but it's just like it's much closer to an X-Brace tone than it is to the old-fashioned sort of lateral brace tone.
I can see that. It's very clear, it's very articulate. I think the story also, as we get out and play them and people play them, it's really the most fascinating, at least to me as a player, truly. The consistency across the fingerboard. We'll have people want us to compare an X-Brace to a V-Class, and we'll do it, and often on parts of the guitar they'll sound the same or similar, or the tuning will be equal in certain parts of the guitar. But when you play across the entire fingerboard, and I know we can do some demos if you like at some point, where we just show you the intonation factor. To me as a player is one of my favorite parts about it. And
do that now then, because I think, I mean, it's you mentioned before, it's tough. Certainly YouTube is it's a great format to tell people a message, but it's probably not the great format to go, here's like something that's 5% different sounding than this, because the way YouTube works is that may not come through. So I guess the big message from this is just go to your local tailor dealer and try one. But you probably can hear, even on YouTube, how some of the chords further up the register do kind of come across and sound fuller than they perhaps would do on a traditional acoustic guitar. I think
it's even the intonation and the sustain factor. I'll do a couple things for you. I'm going to turn the mic. I'm going to turn that off, so we'll just mic.
Perfect.
So when you guys listen to this, and it'll be blatantly obvious, you can hear the tuning issues. If you play, we like to demonstrate chords that you typically wouldn't do on a guitar that might be problematic. Here I'm playing a 12th position E chord, and I'm playing it up top here with an extra third on top, which traditionally you'd have some of that warbling or beating. Some of the notes might decay more quickly than others. Totally in tune, and they're all still ringing. And a chord that I literally, there's several chords that Andy Powers, this is a true story. Andy Powers said, Mark, go and play chords that you just don't play on the guitar because they're going to be problematic. And we'll do that on the lower register in a minute. But like this chord here, this is really usually a problem chord. You got a G, second inversion G chord up top. And another way, when you play octaves on a guitar, that's a way to really kind of exploit if there's a weakness on the intonation. You'll hear it with octaves. So Andy was playing this 1-5-1-5 thing where he's playing two sets of octaves on the highest note of the guitar on an acoustic. Normally you get to the end of these, and a lot of these times the top note might not continue to ring. It'll be something that's problematic. You hear it here. I can't remember if we did this on your last demo or not. Got that harp-like quality in any chord that you play because the intonation is so consistent. We talk about it across the fingerboard.
even in the first piece that you played, you're playing quite a soft picker. I don't know if that's just your style or if you're doing it specifically to try and show off maybe some of the more finer, subtle tones coming out of the guitar. But I'm guessing, it doesn't really matter. It can be a big strummy guitar.
Let's check us out.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, tuning 101. Here's your basic chord. Playing G, it's in, but then you go to your D, your E.
I think intonation on any guitar, when it's perfect, I don't know, everything's just more pleasant to listen to, isn't it? But so when we met at back in January at the NAMM show, and it's October now for anybody listening in maybe months in the future, V-Class was only going to be released this year on 800 series and upwards. Right. And then in the summer we got the news that actually V-Class was going to be rolled out right down to 300 series before the end of the year. So I'm pretty sure now, actually I'm just going to get a nod from over there, pretty sure everything in stock at Andertons now from 300 up is going to be V-braced, right? Yeah, I've got the nod.
Yeah, but only in one body shape. It's really important to know.
Okay.
We're only doing it in our grand auditoriums.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so there's no grand symphonies out there or grand orchestras or grand concerts. And I don't even want to say yet because I really don't know. What we're doing that's really important to note is that the prototyping that's going on, if it works, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
If it's really not a better guitar, we're not going to build it. That's something
that's an interesting, wasn't it? Because if the Dreadnought, if part of the, I know you don't, if part of the Dreadnought sort of DNA is X-bracing, then I guess you have to stay true to that, don't you? And just go, well...
Taylor doesn't. You think about Gibson and Martin and these other manufacturers that make wonderful guitars. They're legacy companies. I mean, they're companies that are built on that. And I think what separates Taylor... and one of the reasons that I'm kind of drawn towards Taylor is I'm forward thinking as far as innovation. I love all the gear, the aux box you have over there, and all the fun stuff that we talked about earlier. Taylor is really always about kind of moving the needle forward up in the game. It's we're a company. We often say we're a company of innovation, and accommodation, trying to make guitars that people want to play live, that are comfortable, but also are innovating. And so. We don't have to stay true to it, but if the X-Brace is better, then we'll keep it, obviously. Yeah. But if we can come up with something better, and one other point I don't think we talked about last time either was that part of why Vandy wanted to go with V-Brace and why Bob and everybody got on board with it. I mean, it was a big gamble if you think about taking a company that's as successful as Taylor is and to switch that. I mean, that's a big deal. It can really break from the industry on some of these things. But the reality is when Andy came in, I think 2011, whenever it was, he started redoing all of our series of guitars, rebracing things, trying different wood thicknesses and different finishes and hide glues and all those things that really optimized our instruments. The reality was we got to a point where we're saying, well, with X-Brace on our grand auditoriums for now, we can make it different. Not sure we can make it better. It's kind of, and that's obviously in conjunction with the thousands of other builders. Everybody's kind of built on everybody else over the years, and so we're looking at maybe having a runway of many years to come. Instead of 180 years and 1,000 builders of X-Brace, now we've got one builder. We're about 3-4 years into it, so there's a lot of room to experiment for the years to come and give us new, exciting products.
It'll be interesting. I mean, I certainly find it fascinating when I've met Andy in the past that I think it's pretty normal for most other builders, most other manufacturers, that they'll go, okay, if we're going to do, here's a kind of a series of guitars, and we're going to do it in 3 different shapes. that actually the timbers used and the finishes used, etc., and the pickups fitted to them, whatever, it'll be consistent across the three shapes, and it'll simply be three different shapes of guitar. And I found it fascinating that Andy was, he was going, no, I really, really want to find out whether or not on this particular shape, using a slightly different thickness of wood on the back and side makes it better or worse. I guess subjective terms, aren't they? But in his ears, better or worse, and even down to finishes, thicknesses of finishes. I find that fascinating that you would go to those lengths, and admirable that Taylor would allow someone to presumably spend thousands of hours trying things that may or may not ever come to fruition or not.
It's kind of like how you run your business, all right? This is your heart and your passion. And you do a fantastic job with these videos. People love them. Every time I mention your name, they're, hey, we're doing an Andertons shoot, people are blown away. It's like, so you take pride in that craft, and I think that's similar to Andy. He's just like, it's what he's gifted to do, and he's trying to make the best product like you are. Like, when I play a concert, I want to do the best we can.
Do the best gig.
It's kind of cool.
So let's talk about now. So 300 series. I hadn't even realised. So it's just. I don't know if you're not familiar with where Taylor call their different shapes, Grand Auditorium, Grand Concert, or whatever. If the model number has a 14 in it, that's Grand Auditorium. So that'll be your V-braced guitar. So a 314, 414, etc., right through to a 914 and K series and presentation. So that's good to know, because I didn't know that. But potentially, I suppose, as more experiments go on, as you say, we don't know necessarily what's in the future.
That's what's exciting. Something to look forward to.
Yeah, but the 300 series. So that's the whole of the solid back and side Made in America series now is V-braced if you buy that shape, which is very cool. Any other changes? I mean, is the electronics in them staying the same as before, or have they been tweaked as well to sort of go with V-bracing?
Interestingly enough, and I would tell you, this is I don't want to come off as marketing. This is really true. This is behind the veil stuff. Okay, I played the guitar. They gave me one last December. Maybe 6 weeks before now. So I get familiar with the guitar. I went into Andy's office and we spent a fair amount of time where he was showing me all the stuff he had been working on, told me all about it, and kind of explained so I could be up to speed to present at NAMM. And so I took it home and started playing it, and I didn't even think about the electronics. It's our ES2. There's nothing's changed on the ES2, but what I would say that I found fascinating was that I did plug it in. I started playing it, and I was messing around in my studio, and I was amazed. I thought, gosh, our ES2 sounds really, really good. And I always liked it. It works great, and it's a great system. But I thought, it sounds amazing. And so the next time I ran to Andy, I said, do we do something different? Our ES2 sounds better to me. He goes, it's the intonation thing. He goes, it's translating. He goes, and his quote I thought was fascinating. He goes, our ES2 is better than we probably even thought it was, because it really is translating what the guitar is doing. And these guitars were translating none of those sour notes or the inconsistencies of some other.
So turn the volume up on there. So you're hearing this through a little Boss Acoustic Singer Pro. And so we'll switch the microphone off now. So you'll just hear ES2 through this V. I mean, it doesn't have, I mean, in fairness, as you said, neither did the previous system, but it doesn't have that unpleasant tinniness that some piezo systems have. It's a natural sounding system. All the playing you've heard from Marc so far has been on this very, very pretty Builder's Edition 614, which we'll kind of go back to afterwards, because it's kind of a limited edition cool thing. But there's nothing quite like going, well, let's get the bottom of the range, well, that's kind of an unfair term, the least expensive guitar with V-bracing, and just show that, even on the more affordable models, they still sound amazing, and it makes a difference. So 314, solid spruce top, sapele back and sides. Sapele, if you're not familiar, is kind of like a derivative of mahogany, like an African mahogany, although not a true member of the mahogany family. But this is, as you can see, this is a much simpler looking guitar, but this is still a 2018 V-braced model, so let's see what it sounds like. you almost have to tune your brain in to listen for it, but that constant sort of droning sustain of everything happening all the time, even though you're playing other chords, is a really pleasant kind of overtone to the guitar you're doing, to the part that you're playing. So anyway,
it's kind of got that mahogany vibe to it, which like you're talking about. When you have the mahogany sound, it's almost like the tops sanded off a little bit and the lows are sanded off. It's that real smooth. It's really forgiving if you think basic chords. One chord I got to play for you.
Go on, play a chord.
One chord I gave up forever ago.
I gave up a chord.
A pile
I've been clean for 372 days.
It's been 13 years, 70. No, we love talking about this at the shows in V class, and I'll showcase it on this particular guitar. But a lot of times you'll tune up your guitar perfectly, right? And then you dial in, you play an E chord, and like, perfect. Then what happens when you go to your D chord?
Yeah. Perfect.
So your C chord should be out. And if that's true, then your E minor is going to be out because that first finger against the nut would be. And the one that trips me out, so you do all of that first position F chord. I just don't play this. That first finger up against the nut always pulls those sharp. Less than 15 seconds.
It's fine. I definitely weren't free falling anywhere.
All right. It's amazing, right? Do you hear it? Tell me the truth.
I kind of. I'm always. I think you're right to sort of balance everything with that. These are improvements, and we should strive for kind of this like perfect intonation and perfect sound there and that. But I sort of go back and going, I don't listen to the original Tom Petty version of that and go, damn it, one of those chords is just slightly not intonated properly. So please,
That's a really good point.
It's like, or it's like the classic meme of the Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock basically still ripping it up despite the fact that none of his pedals are true bypass. It's just like, so I sort of get that, and it's an interesting. I don't want to, and I don't think Taylor do either. I don't think there's any question of going, oh right, everything now that isn't V-bracing is bad. It's like
it's quite the opposite. Like I say, I own 25 acoustic guitars, and 24 of them are X-brace, and they're all fantastic. Martins, I've got,
and even like the classic Gibson guitar issue where the G string is always a bit of a bugger to kind of get in tune, and then you just sit there going, I'm sure Slash and Jimmy Page and Paul Kossoff, it's just like they must. It's like. It's like you make it work. They make great noises and everything. But there is definitely that kind of satisfaction of going. I'm playing all the chords, anywhere on the fretboard. Everything's in tune. Who wouldn't want that? It's just a nice feeling, isn't it? So
I think it's a trip in that. You think the guitar, it's so subjective. There's plenty of guitars. Sonically, we could go through, close our eyes, listen to a pile of guitars, X-brace, doesn't matter. And we would say, that guitar to me sounded the best. I don't think the ultimate goal for this guitar is to sound, like you say, it's not one guitar that's going to change everything. However, what this does do, and what I can honestly say I use all the time, I do tons of videos. I do tons of recording. And what I love about it when I'm doing the videos I make, whether for Elixir Strings or whoever, Taylor or whatever, I love the guitar for a couple of reasons, especially this one or the K14. It's got the satin finish on it, which is really cool. So for cameras, you know how it is dealing with lights and all the shiny stuff, right? What a pain that is. So I love the finish for lights. Okay. But I tune it one time, and when I'm doing, and remember, we were talking earlier about thumbs up and thumbs down on videos, right? You see that 5 thumbs down and 95 thumbs up, and you're like, okay, I'm in the ballpark. We're cool. For me, when I've done videos, if a note's slightly out of tune, that's the guy that gives you the thumb. Oh, your B string's slightly sharp. You're like, okay, okay, it is, whatever. With these guitars, when I've been shooting videos for a while now, I tune it one time perfectly before a video shoot, and it stays true through the whole thing. Sounds are clear, they're good. And that's for me been one of the biggest, really cool things about the classes.
I mean, I try to stay honest, and the guitar is such a subjective beast, so really you got a room full of Taylors and Martins and Gibsons and other more boutique brands, and it's like 20 guys will go in there and 20 guys will have a different experience about which one they decide they fall in love with. But if I have to be, if there's one thing that you can say Taylor head and shoulders stands out, is its consistency from one model to the next. You know, I guess V bracing maybe is, and the Intonation is striving again towards that. You know, you kind of know that, you know, on when the 614 Builders Edition comes out, whatever, and you think, oh, yeah, that'll probably be pretty popular. Let's order 4 of those or something like that. You kind of know that that they're just going to all be identical, right, or within the tiniest tolerance.
9.5 out of 10 are going to be the same.
So, which you can't say about other brands. And I'm not saying that some will be good and some will be bad. I'm just saying that they'll all be a little different, you know. But so anyway, thank you very much for playing that. Before we sort of finish up this video, I'll grab a couple of the other guitars that we've got, some beautiful finishes that you can see. But tell us, what's the thinking behind the 614 Builders Edition? Because that is a 2018 thing, isn't it? The Builders
that
Edition
came out in Summer NAMM this year for us.
Yeah.
And we do the Builders Edition. What's cool about this is really Andy Powers is the guitar he wants to build for himself. So,
right.
Well, if I'm going to go play, I'm going to gig, I'm going to record all these things. So what enhancements would I put on the instrument? And we did it originally with our original release, I think January of 2018 when you first came to NAMM. We had our K14 CE Builders Deluxe, which is a Koa version of this. This is the new 600 series. It's a maple back and sides. It's got a torrified spruce top. Not to be confused with terrified. It's not a terrified spruce.
That's what you do. You read you show horror movies to pieces of wood. That's how you make terrified pieces of wood.
Brilliant. And we have the armrest. You can show where the beveled armrest is. And that just makes it real comfortable. It keeps your arm off the top of the guitar. You also notice what's interesting is all the edges around the entire guitar have a nice roundedness to them. So it's real smooth, comfortable on your leg, comfortable on your arm. And most importantly, when I was doing the demos earlier where we're playing the high notes on the guitar, you'll notice we have that beveled cutaway, which that's the only guitar we do that on. And that's because,
really?
Yeah, those notes up there. In fact, put your hand on the guitar and show how you'll see how really comfortably play that highest note up there.
I totally never play up here, but you know what? The little
pinky gets up there comfortably.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really comfortable.
Well, that's handy for the note that I never play on an acoustic guitar.
And you would never, and right, traditionally you wouldn't play that note, but now it's a viable option.
Maybe it's a viable option, yeah, absolutely.
And we even took, down here, we even have the lip right here lower, on the bottom of the guitar, so it's just a real comfortable access. And the other thing he did that's really cool is he did what we call the silent satin finish on there.
I was going to say, because the 600 series normally is a gloss finish, isn't it?
Yeah, and this isn't even our normal satin. Andy's a pretty intelligent guy, and you know he does a lot of gigs. He's a ridiculous guitar player. In fact, string player. He plays everything, strings, and when he plays, every now and again he sweats a little bit. And that was kind of cool. You know, that's his thing, but it squeaks when he plays. And so having all the resources he had available to him, he could go create a finish that doesn't squeak, which is why it's called the silent satin finish. I thought that was really
anti-squeak. Cool. Whatever will they think of next?
That's right.
Well, that's beautiful, and that's limited edition. So if you're loving that.
Actually, those are not. I don't think those are limited editions.
I thought
right?
614 was
Simon's off
edition.
camera. It's nodding his head.
Okay.
It's not limited. It's the Builder's edition, and he's the builder, so it's his edition of the guitar.
Cool.
And we do that in both the K14 Koa and the 6 Maple.
So this is K series. Oh, K for Koa. Yeah. Koa's kind of like it's got some visual similarities to Flame Maple, hasn't it? But with a little bit more sort of behind the scenes figuring. Tonally speaking, I'll plug this one in for you, or you can plug it in a second. But where would you say it sort of sits tonally?
Well, we kind of think it has the property of the big three, and the big three being mahogany, maple, and Indian rosewood. But it's interesting the way that maple ages. You know, all guitars open up over time. You play them enough, the fibers loosen up, whatever it is that happens. Why don't we turn that amp off? When all that here, 1 second. I don't know if I tuned that one or not either. But what happens with the wood is that over time it gathers a lot of low end. So it starts out a little more maple and a little more mahogany. So you have EQ curve up here. It's got a lot of mid range and a lot of sparkle up on top. Has some low end, but in time it gathers more low end than traditional other woods do. So we didn't even tune it. Okay, look at that. Right. Dig in. I love Koa because if you dig into it also for me, maybe because it's a little denser, it just has, it really responds well to a heavier attack.
I would definitely, if you're watching this video and you get to the end, just work out where the timings are for each of the guitars that Marc's played and just kind of do them back to back, because I mean it sounds very, very different to the 300 series, quite a lot louder I think, but it's a beautiful looking guitar. The last one that we've got here, if you can just hold that for a second and I'll grab one of them back from you, is the presentation or 900?
This is the K14. This is the other builder's edition, so this is also Koa, but this is a satin Koa. So you can actually see, check this out, it's actually kind of a cool visual. Those are both Koa, one's glossed and one's got a little burst on it with a satin finish.
I mean, I don't know if it's the gloss or just the slightly later stain, but the vertical grain on here is much more visible than it is on this one.
Yeah, this actually, like you said, it looks kind of like a little bit like maple. It has that kind of vibe. This is also the silent satin finish.
So if you're a high sweating guitar player, I don't think I've even seen a Builder's Edition K14 before, which is why I thought it was one of the presentation models. But that's very pretty. So is that a cedar top on here then?
No, it's a torrefied spruce top as well.
Right. So it just goes a little darker. Yeah.
This is pretty much the first one we released. In fact. The guitar I used back home for the videos was one of the first 3 or 4 builds. This is the one that I got familiar with.
Right.
And so then when I played this originally, and then the others came out, I was like, well, do all the other ones do the same thing? And they all do the same thing that we talked about, the consistency across the neck, as well as the intonation stuff, but they all sound totally different, like you said. In fact, one of the things that you'll find if you play through the guitars is that the V-Class does something kind of unique in that it makes each guitar sound a little bit more like the way we describe the tonal properties of wood. And what I mean by that is, we got new roadsters, like, okay, here's a mahogany guitar, it's got a little bit of mid-range, it's warm, blah, blah, blah. And these guitars just make them a little more mahogany or a little more maple. And that can be good or bad, depending on if you like it or not, but that's kind of the result. You really seem to notice the wood variances a lot.
Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure having you over. Thanks for coming again. I think we should play out, I say we, obviously I mean Marc, using this Builder's Edition model, which obviously I gather is the one that you're most familiar with. So you're going to plug in or just play acoustically?
Do both.
Do a bit of both. Absolutely.
You guys mix how you see fit.
I'll put a link in the description below where you can find out more about Taylor and the V-bracing guitars. Obviously, your best bet is to come to Andertons if you live nearby, or if you don't, go to another Taylor dealer. Obviously, I'll have a sad face if that happens. But yeah, come to Andertons. All these are on display, right from the 300 series up to the K series, and see for yourself. But thank you so much again to the guys from Taylor for coming in. And here is a beautiful piece of music called Lick My Something or Other that Marc has written for us.
It's in the key of D minor, which quite frankly is the saddest of all keys, right?